First, it was some 9-picture contract, and decide you don't want to do them anymore. You're afforded the opportunity to take a step back and recalibrate when you have a giant contract.
Chris Evans is finally exposing the truth behind his Marvel exit. After Disney locked him into a brutal 9-film contract, stripped his freedom, and muzzled his opinions, the so-called Captain America had enough. They ghosted him when he stopped playing along, so he walked away to save himself.
It kept coming back my way. I said no a few times, and it kept coming back, and I talked to a few people in my life, family and friends, and...
Chris Evans is finally saying out loud what Marvel and Disney spent years trying to bury. For the first time, we're hearing the real reason Captain America himself walked away from the billion-dollar Avengers machine, and it has nothing to do with spandex or being tired of lifting Thor's hammer. Evans straight up admitted it. He turned down Captain America multiple times, not because he was scared of the role, but because he saw Disney's trap from a mile away.
When you have a giant contract, if all of a sudden you're not responding well, too bad. You got to suit up again. That was scary.
A brutal 9-picture contract that basically owned him for the next decade. You heard that right. 10 years of your life locked down under Mickey Mouse's dictatorship. His exact words? You gotta suit up again whether you're okay or not. That's not a superhero gig. That's basically a corporate hostage situation wrapped in a red, white, and blue flag.
It's kind of clicking to me in the way of looking at it is, whatever you're scared of, push yourself into it.
And it's not like this is some isolated thing. Disney has a formula. They squeeze every drop of box office gold from their actors, plaster their faces on lunchboxes, shampoo bottles, and cereal boxes, and then quietly toss them aside when they're no longer useful. They tried to ghost Chris Evans the same way. The same guy who carried their entire franchise for a decade. It's funny how the second you're done making them money, you basically vanish from the posters, the interviews, even the storylines. That's Disney's loyalty for you. Remember when Chris Evans said, "I'm not trying to get too lost in the American side of it. This isn't a flag-waving movie. It is red, white, and blue, but it just so happens that the character was created in America during wartime, when there was a common enemy, even though it is Captain America." I've said before in interviews, it feels more like he should just be called Captain Good.
Yeah, I was scared. Because at first it was some 9-picture contract, and...
What's wild is that Chris Evans never even wanted this superhero nonsense in the first place. You know how they love to tell the rags to riches Marvel story? Yeah, that wasn't Evans. He wasn't some fanboy dreaming of wearing a cape. He wanted indie films, theater roles, actual acting, not protein shakes and green screens. But Marvel sold him this fake destiny, dressed it up as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and trapped him in it.
It's a big decision to make. If the first film does well, and if there's a big shift in lifestyle, there's no opportunity to retreat. Guess what? You gotta work again in 3 months, so figure it out.
Let's talk about that transformation they all brag about. You remember the scene in Captain America? The first Avenger where Steve Rogers steps out of that pod, all jacked and shiny like an action figure? Everyone was drooling over the six-pack, but no one talks about the fact Evans was so physically drained from filming that scene, he literally slept for 3 straight days afterward. That's not movie magic. That's Disney-level body abuse with a side of rice and chicken so bland it probably had less flavor than the MCU's Phase 4. And Disney didn't just own his body. They owned his whole identity.
And it was brutal. The tricky part was eating. Just bland, naked pieces of chicken and rice, and you're just so full. It's a pretty uncomfortable feeling.
When he signed that contract, he wasn't just agreeing to make movies. He was agreeing to live as Captain America 24/7. No room for personal opinions, no room for actual human flaws, and definitely no room to publicly struggle with mental health. First time he put the suit on, he straight up called it terrifying. And not because the suit was uncomfortable, because the role was basically eating his freedom alive.
The first time I put the suit on, I was still a little apprehensive about the job. It was kind of like, oh man, what have I got myself into?
Public persona control? Don't even get me started. Evans couldn't sneeze without someone at Disney HQ drafting an apology statement. No controversial takes, no political comments, and for the love of Mickey, no deviation from their global-friendly, corporate-safe image. They wanted him clean-cut, all-American, and mute on real issues. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the guy was suffocating.
People close to me were treating me with kid gloves.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was so apprehensive about taking the job. One of the standard questions was, "Hey, you doing? You okay? You okay? You all right?"
But here's where it gets good. Evans didn't just roll over and play good little Marvel soldier. He outsmarted them. Signed the 9-picture deal? Sure, but kept parts of himself off limits. And the second that contract expired, he started dropping truth bombs left and right. Remember the Lightyear drama?
Is this possibly the last time that you're Captain America?
It is. My contract is up.
When people lost their minds over 2 women sharing a quick kiss in a Pixar movie, most Disney actors would have hidden behind PR-approved statements. Evans? Nah. He torched the haters. Those people are idiots. They'll die off like dinosaurs. His words, not mine. That's how you know the Disney leash finally snapped.
The real truth is those people are idiots.
Those people die off like dinosaurs.
Lightyear got banned in 14 countries. Disney lost $16 million, and Evans couldn't care less. He finally had his voice back. He pivoted fast, too. Indie films like Pain Hustlers, building his civic platform a starting point, choosing roles where Disney no longer controls what he can say or do. And have you noticed? He's nowhere near Avengers Doomsday. That's not a coincidence. That's Disney freezing him out because they couldn't control him anymore. Then there's Jeremy Renner, who went through a real-life near-death experience getting run over by a snowplow, only to have Disney insult him with a pay-cut offer for Hawkeye Season 2. The guy's still recovering, probably has more metal in his body than Iron Man's suit. And their thank you gift is half the paycheck?
I won't be limited to just that. But it is a essential part of my life, right? A lot of people know me for a certain type of jobs.
And I was pissed about it.
His response was legendary, though. What, I'm only half the Jeremy now because I got run over? If nothing else, at least Renner knows how to clap back harder than Mackie delivers lines. But let's address the walking embarrassment in the room, Anthony Mackie.
If you're leading.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches.
Chris Evans made Captain America a symbol of backbone, courage, and sacrifice. Mackie turned him into... what? A PR disaster with zero clue what the role represents. Saying Captain America shouldn't represent America? Are you serious? It's literally in the name, Anthony. The guy makes a press statement so dumb, I swear even the Winter Soldier facepalmed.
There's no chance to say, you know what, I gotta take a break. I'd like to go back to Boston, maybe reassess, get my head back on straight.
Fans didn't ask for this off-brand dollar store Captain America knockoff. They wanted the real thing. They wanted Evans, who bled for that shield, not Mackie, who's out here giving vague TED Talks on values while disrespecting the legacy with every interview. And now, Disney's scrambling. Phase 5 is falling apart. Mackie's version of Cap isn't connecting with anyone, and the fans? They're still chanting one name, Chris Evans. Because when Disney chewed him up and spat him out, Evans didn't just walk away. He walked away with his dignity intact, something Anthony Mackie clearly left at the casting call. Marvel is having a full-blown identity crisis, and Anthony Mackie is fumbling the shield like he's allergic to legacy. The guy gets handed the most iconic symbol in superhero history and immediately turns it into a PR disaster.
Well, I mean, Marvel certainly kind of breaks you into that. But
His genius take? He doesn't think America should be part of what Captain America represents. Really? That's like opening a pizza place and saying you're not sure cheese belongs on the menu. 75 years of history, comic books, movies, and actual real-world symbolism flushed down the drain because Mackie decided to turn Cap into a motivational poster with no backbone. And the backlash was instant. Fans didn't waste a second. Boycotts for Brave New World started brewing before the first trailer even dropped. And Marvel, which is already struggling after the Marvels bombed and Quantumania underperformed, is now desperate for damage control.
It's sad not to be back with the band, but I'm sure they're going to do something incredible, and I'm sure it's going to be that much harder when it comes out and you feel like you weren't invited to the party.
But instead of owning the mess, Mackie's out here fumbling harder than ever with his laughable PR cleanup tour. Suddenly, he's a proud American, and playing Cap is the honor of a lifetime. Yeah, right. That performance is as convincing as his one-liners in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You know, the show that made people more excited to rewatch old Steve Rogers clips than to support this dollar store version of Captain America. Meanwhile, Chris Evans? The guy didn't just play Cap. He made Captain America the moral anchor of the entire MCU. His portrayal was layered, principled, human, something Mackie clearly can't relate to. Now the internet's in full revolt mode. You scroll through Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, and it's the same question over and over. Where's Steve? Where's the real Cap? Because Mackie's version flopped harder than Marvel's entire Phase 5 lineup. And considering how rough that phase has been, that's saying a lot. The truth's out now, it's your turn to decide whose side you're on. Stay updated. Hit subscribe.